Australia is now getting added to the list of nations who restrict social media usage for children. In a bold step, the Australian government is mulling to introduce a legislation to ban children under 16 years from social media. Now, the legislation will be introduced into the parliament this year, and the law is likely to come into effect in 12 months after it is ratified by the lawmakers, that is. This includes no Instagram, no Facebook, no TikTok for the children. And there are no exceptions, which means even if you have parental consent, then as well, it's a big no. However, there are no penalties as of now, not even on the parents in case they allow their kids knowingly or unknowingly, that is, to use social media. The onus here lies entirely on the social media platforms to prevent access to those under 16. Now, the impacted platforms likely include Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, and YouTube. But let's tell you, this move aims to protect the young citizens from the potential harms of social media amid concerns over its impact on health and concentration. According to a study from March this year, exposure to television, phone, and other screens hinders young children's language skills. So that's in a stark finding. The research revealed that an average toddler is missing out on hearing more than 1,000 words spoken by an adult each day due to screen time, that is. So if implemented, it will be one of the toughest controls imposed by any country so far. But let's tell you, France last year proposed a ban on social media for those under 15, although parental consent allows one to avoid this ban. Meanwhile, in September, Sweden also proposed to limit screen time to 0 for those below 2 years of age, while also limiting it till the time you cross your teens. Now, in US, remember, technology companies are required to seek parental consent to access the data of children under 13. So this has essentially led to most social media platforms banning those under 13 years of age from accessing their services.
Social media is doing harm to our kids, and I'm calling time on it. I've spoken to thousands of parents, grandparents, aunties and uncles. They, like me, are worried sick about the safety of our kids online. And I want Australian parents and families to know that the government has your back. I want parents to be able to say, sorry mate, it's against the law for me to get you to do this. Now, government's proposed age is 16. That decision was made in Cabinet on Monday. The onus will be on social media platforms to demonstrate they are taking reasonable steps to prevent access. The onus won't be on parents or young people. There will be no penalties for users.
All right. What do my guests think about that? I'm taking that question across to them who joined me this afternoon. Dr. Hari Shetty, psychiatrist, Advocate Anubha Srivastava Sahai, President, India-Wide Parents Association, and Utpal Kot, social media strategist and influencer. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here, and thank you for the patience. In fact, Utpal, let me begin by asking you this in terms of the fact that right off the bat, what do you make of this move?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. And this is, I will term this as eventually each and every country would want to project themselves as as if they're worried and caring for the children of their country. So eventually, this kind of bans or resolutions will be done by every country. As you're aware, I mean, Meta has already introduced this child lock kind of a thing for social media use. And platforms have already taken that initiative. So a country imposing a kind of a ban. First of all, there's no clarity as of now in terms of the micro details which they would include, whether there would be penalties or not. So this is just a statement given by the Prime Minister, and it would take effectively a year for it to get passed, wherein it would be refined and certain terms and conditions would be added, because as you know that for most of the study academics things, children need to use social media. So a complete ban, one, is not possible. It has to be under some kind of parental guidance, and parents will allow their children to use restricted social media for the educational purpose. So a complete ban, first of all, it's not clear whether this ban is going to be like, a child cannot use social media at all. What kind of penalties would be implemented if a child is found, or if parents are found allowing the child to use social media? Whether parents will accept, whether citizens will accept this kind of ban wholeheartedly, because on X, if you see, already there's a kind of flack and hatred which Prime Minister Anthony has already garnered, and people have started saying that it's not possible, how can you put a ban, and all that. So I feel it's too early to
Hmm.
comment, but yes, it's a good move if he is trying to restrict children from unlimited and uncontrolled usage of social media, because this delicate age of 10 to 15 is somewhere where we need to monitor what kind of exposure we are giving to the children. Too much of screen time, exposure to fraud, scams, it's very, very likely to happen in this age, though elders also get scammed. But younger children of this age, we have always found they are more exposed to such kind of frauds and scams. So it's a good move, I would say. Only thing, it needs more refinement and
Okay.
more details. Once the details are given, people will understand that it is for the betterment of the children.
Right. So the finer line over here is not clear, but the move, of course, essentially looks good. So taking that to Dr. Shetty, in terms of the fact that, this is not the first time we're looking at something like this being spoken about, but rather the implementation of this, Dr. Shetty, might be a big challenge considering the loopholes, like how also Utpal was saying that in his opening remarks.
I think the intent is visible. The intent which every government has is to protect the children. And if you look at data, social
Right.
media and youth at the United States of America, Surgeon General, the UNESCO document on technology and education, and the federal court cases filed by many states in the USA against Meta, saying that you have blood in your hands. So there is evidence that this is addictive. This is designed to addict. So intention is good, and they have started beginning, and slowly they'll find a way. That is something which is very important. Number two, at this point of time, the brain is developing, but the prefrontal cortex has still not developed. Till the age of 18, prefrontal cortex actually develops. So at this point of time, when the brain development takes place, to give a child a gadget which he or she cannot leave is very dangerous. Though it's unpopular, though my friend, there's a lot of hate mail against the Prime Minister, sometimes you have to do things against the tide and people will understand it much later. So, fourth thing which is very important, you can't ban completely, but you have to gradually withdraw, and there has to be an education across board in the entire country that what are the alternatives children will have to have a high. What is it that they can use? Would they play with their fingers or play with their hands and legs? And so an alternative highs which children had in the past has to be brought into fore and has to be discussed across board. But consensus sometimes gives you weak decisions. Sometimes you have to go against the tide. Sometimes you have to be very disruptive. It is proved beyond doubt by research that these are addictive. These are designed to addict. They are designed to help children. And children for the education don't need social media. They need the internet. So that is something we need to do. I encourage this move of the Australian government. And I feel if you look at the UNESCO document of July, they said 1 out of 3 countries of the world has restricting gadget use slowly by advice or by law. So the world is uniting to a point, understanding the fact that certain gadgets and certain social media channels are extremely addictive, and at that age they should not be given that. They should be provided a lot of healthy alternatives for a wholesome personality to grow. 1 out of 7 adolescents across the world have mental health issues. 50% of mental health issues among adults starts before the age of 14. And gadgets change the game to such a great extent that it's so difficult for school teachers, school principals, families, and parents to pull the child away from the gadget and ask him to run on the ground or play with his mind and body. So I think this is a very welcome move. It's an intent, it's a desire. It will take its own pace and it will take its own shape as time passes.
Right, Dr. Shetty. In fact, as you look into that and draw your perspective on it, I'll come back to you because considering, in fact, the larger aspect of that, but getting in a word from Anubha, there is, as far as you're looking at this particular intent, like Dr. Shetty said, it's great also because of the impact on the age group that we're talking about. But Anubha, your role as a parent, right? One aspect is accountability. The second being, of course, how practical is it for working parents, especially when you're living in a digital age, and more importantly, in terms of these restrictions coming through, how one can monitor this. What do you make of that?
Thank you for having me on this show, and I really appreciate what Australian government has done. It's a very good move, and we have been telling the government also, we have been demanding the same thing in our country also, that the children should be kept away from social media. Children should be kept away from all the gadgets, mobiles, and all other electronic gadgets. And social media actually is really, really harmful for children below 16, even below 18, I would say. It's very, very harmful. And we know since COVID, there is so much of exposure as far as the young children are concerned. Now they have been given all the assignments. Even now the children are using many schools are using social media only, WhatsApp and other mediums, where they are sending assignments. So that should be stopped completely, because most of the children are under the impression that no, we will be getting access to mobile if our teacher will give homework and all. So complete ban is must in our country. And as far as social media access and mobile gadgets are concerned, I think this is creating a lot of problem in schools and as well as among young children. There is a lot of competition among children that I am having iPhone. The X person, my friend, is not having iPhone. So I would suggest government to come up with an ordinance immediately, as soon as possible, to come up with an ordinance. Am I audible?
All right, Anubha, as you're, of course, drawing perspective. Yes, you are. We heard your valid points as well. Quickly taking that back to Dr. Shetty before I come to you, Utpal. Dr. Shetty, one of the aspects of what was being discussed as well is impact in terms of this age group that we're looking at, right? We're given to understand in a stark finding, research revealed that an average toddler is missing out at least on hearing more than 1,000 words spoken by an adult each day due to screen time, more importantly, distraction, concentration issues. So in that view, do you think this was high time that a move like this to be implemented, while of course there are challenges?
Absolutely. In fact, there's data on depression, suicide, anxiety, and there's one small data among children who have never had ADHD, hyperactivity. After being on the screen for a long time, for 2 hours, he also showed hyperactivity. Now, it's an impulsive brain at that age. The amygdaloid and the prefrontal cortex are still not yet balanced. And during that impulsive age, you give a toy which he cannot leave, would cause a lot of damage. And what is very important is Meta has come up with some rules on Instagram, but children will break the rules because they'll say they're 18, they will lie that they're not 16. So it's difficult for the social media channels to find the exact age of the child. The point is, in a world affected by globalization, where the emotional contact time and the family contact time has gone down, this has come as a savior, but not as a healthy savior, but as a savior which is a devil. So I think that we need to understand that the biggest enemy of society today is disconnection. We don't meet, we don't chat, we don't talk, we don't attend any funerals. So unless communities in mohallas, in buildings, in towers, in villages start reconnecting, and when they start reconnecting, they'll be able to define the role of social media and gadgets among children. It needs a movement. It does not need only a
right, Dr.
counselor.
Shetty, I'd have to interject you there because I would want to get in a word from Utpal also quickly. But you mean reconnecting not to the Wi-Fi, but reconnecting on a human touch. But before we wrap up, Utpal, quickly taking closing remarks in terms of the fact that, with valid aspects here, there are multiple instances of fudging age. More importantly, if there's a will, there's a way. You can also find ways of VPN and whatnot today.
True. Though I agree with both the panelists here today, I would also want to add that, let us
Hmm.
accept that, I was born in the 70s, wherein there was no social media, no internet. Then I've seen the whole transition wherein we are now moving towards this internet, social media age, which we cannot reverse, however we would wish to. So while establishing a human connect, we need to now introduce this as a separate, what I would say, subject in the schools, wherein children are taught effectively
Hmm.
how to use social media, the way we are teaching them science, maths,
Right.
physics, social studies.
Utpal,
Similarly, we'll have to
although
teach
you
them
are
how to use
making
social
those
media. We
significant
just
points, I'm
can't.
afraid I'd have to interject you because we're running short of time on the show. But thank you, all of you, in fact, for joining us here and sharing with us your perspective as to what you make of it. But for the moment, we'd have to leave the conversation at that.